Hey, this is Adam Torres, and I'm here to tell you that it has never been easier to start your very own podcast. At Mission Matters, our goal is to amplify stories that matter. That means we want to help you start your podcast because your story matters. We can do this in 3 different ways. 1, join our podcast school and take a free or paid course. 2, visit our resources page where we've already figured out what you need, such as where to host your podcast. Or 3, heck, we can even do everything for you through our podcast agency, including editing for cheaper than you can do in-house. Oh, and no contracts, service is month to month. Get started by heading over to missionmatters.com and click on Start a Podcast. All right, now let's get into the show. Hey, I'd like to welcome you to another episode of the Mission Matters Money Podcast, your source for all things money. My name is Adam Torres. You can follow me on Instagram at AskAdamTorres to keep up with my book releases, book tour schedule, signings, all that other good stuff. Always love to connect with you there. And as always, if you'd like to apply to become a co-author of one of my upcoming books, just head on over to the website, missionmatters.com, and click on Become an Author to apply. All right, so today I have Lior Gantz on the line. He's founder over at wealthresearchgroup.com. Lior, welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks for having me.
So excited to get into today's topic. We're going to talk a little bit more about what's going in the precious metals market right now. And of course, we want to learn more about wealthresearchgroup.com. But before we get into that, tell us a little bit more about your background. So how did you get started in your career and in business?
Well, my father went bankrupt when I was about 13. So I kind of went into not the business, but the earning very early on because I had no other choice. But in hindsight, obviously, that actually gave me an advantage. I started saving, working at babysitting, tutoring basketball, painting decks, handing out flyers. By the time I'm 16, I have about 20 grand saved up. And the banker tells me, do you want to invest? And I'm 16 at the time. This is June of 2000. I say, well, what does that mean? Well, he says, the money that you have in your account is sitting idle. Do you want it to grow by investing in equity? So I told him, of course. That sounds very nice. So he had me sign a waiver for my parents so I can start trading as a minor. And then what I did was I read 100 books the first year to year and a half. So from June 2000 to about June 2002, I'm reading 100 books from all the legends, everything. Amazon was just starting to deliver books, so I was getting books, and this is during the time I'm in high school. By the time I'm 18, I have a portfolio, and that's how I got started in investing. And entrepreneurship just came later very naturally because I'm reading about all these businesses every day of my life, and I'm thinking I have to be a business owner as well. So that's how I got started in business. In 2016, fast forward, I decided that this path that I was on, this financial education, is definitely not the path that most people take. Most people stop reading books, stop trying to educate themselves. They don't treat life as a school, and therefore they're getting left behind 100%. And so I started wealthresearchgroup.com as a free financial newsletter to basically uplift the level of awareness that people have to what's going on the economic side. And our main objective was to educate people on the fact that the dollar is having structural problems with all the deficits of national debt. We started covering gold and silver in 2016, and the price now is at an all-time high for gold and an 8-year high for silver. So what we've been talking about is manifesting. And it's been a very, very exciting time for the company and for readers.
Man, what an amazing story. I love that. So you were a hustler from the age of 16 out there working and earning and then investing as a minor with the waiver signed. I mean, what an amazing story. So I do want to spend some time on wealthresearchgroup.com. So you mentioned that you're all about educating and that you have a newsletter. Tell us more about that and about the kind of content that my listeners, because I want them to go check that out, can expect when they visit your site and sign up for the newsletter.
Yeah, the newsletter is a combination of 2 things. It basically goes out every Sunday, Tuesday, and Thursday, unless there's something very time sensitive. And what I try and do is I try to congest the 6 to 7 hours a day that I deal with CEOs of companies, speaking with many leaders in business, reading books, looking at financials, and I try to condense that into a 5-minute read. So that's what you get, basically. That's the value. And I feel like it's also a good exercise for me, for every day to basically congest what I've learned into a bite-sized article, 500-600 words of everything that I've learned that day. It's pretty valuable. If you think about it, it's almost like a diary that goes out to the public. And then if I see specific opportunities that are exciting, then I share those as well. So, for example, we have done a lot of special reports and download reports on the website and in the newsletter of companies during this COVID-19 crisis. And their shares are up 100, 150, 200, 300% in a few months. And many of them, people heard about them from our newsletter, and they didn't know they existed before. That's a lot of the value. Hey, look at this company. Here's a little bit of research. Do your own research from here on. But this is something that I'm excited about. So it's basically congesting a lot of general information with specific information if I find something worth sharing.
Man, that's awesome. And how long has your newsletter been running now? So how long has everything been going? I'm just curious.
This is from February of 2016, so 4.5 years.
I love it, man. And the reason I asked that question is because I love when somebody, like, just that exercise of what you're doing and putting out that consistent content for people. Like, I just know that you're following your newsletter, and the people that know the work you're putting into that, like, they appreciate you. They know what you're doing. They appreciate it. And I'm sure you have subscribers since day one.
Yeah, no, it's been growing very fast. One reason was that in 2017, we were the first newsletter in the world to cover Ethereum. It's the second largest cryptocurrency.
Oh, wow.
It traded at $12 a coin when we covered it in March of 2017. And
no way.
It traded over 1,000.
That's early.
Yeah, that's 80 times what it was worth when we covered it the first time. I interviewed the founder of Litecoin, Charlie Lee, his name was, when Litecoin was worth $20 before it went to over 400. Monero, it was $19. We covered it. It went to 300 and something. Bitcoin at 400. Actually, my partner was the first newsletter in the world to cover it at $13 a coin. This is way.
Wow! No way.
So that's why there's a lot of people come to the newsletter because, for one, it's free. And we will always keep it that way because we want to make sure that our main mission is to make sure that people are on the same page. That's the real problem in the Western world. It's not that people are that the people that are wealthy are necessarily much smarter than the people that aren't. It's that they have access to information that you either don't have the time or there's some sort of obstacle that is hurting many people. It may be their upbringing that they were just not introduced to the topic of money at all. Never, ever in their lives. Because they've just been running those circles. But perhaps they have both the motivation, the hunger, and the capability to learn, basically being open-minded. And that's the crowd that we want to help because I think financial education, financial literacy is the main reason for the income and wealth divide in America that is disproportionate to other Western countries.
No, I totally agree, and I think it's and I think what you're doing is an awesome service to get the information out there to the masses. So it's a big deal. Let's talk a little bit about what's going on in the markets now. So you mentioned obviously gold all-time high. I mean, what are you seeing?
So gold is highly correlated which means it moves in tandem with what we call the barometer of the finance world, and that is the yield or the interest rate that the 10-year bond that the Treasury Department issues pays out. So if in the finance world, what is called the risk-free asset is how much money American government is willing to pay an investor that lends money for 10 years. Everything in the world is judged by that measuring stick. If Washington is willing to pay lenders 5%, then everything else moves accordingly. In today's world, Washington is willing to pay lenders about 0.6% a year. That means if you're a retiree, which a quarter of Americans are, and you've saved up $500,000 or $1 million or $100,000, and you want to have it in the most risk-free type of environment, the world is usually going towards the 10-year bond. And so if you take, let's say, $500,000 and put it at 0.6%, that's only $30,000 a year. And 10 years ago, that was 4 or 5%. So the difference is huge, especially for a retiree, where $500,000 used to pay him much more than it does now. So in that kind of environment, people are looking for other ways to generate income, and to hedge the lack of yield that cash pays. Usually, when cash doesn't pay any income, like in today's world, where most governments either pay you zero or negative rates. In other words, they charge you for lending them money. How would you like that, Adam?
Exactly. Thank you.
you get $1 million loan from somebody, and then at the end of the term, you say, I appreciate that. Here's your $900,000 back.
Wow.
I charge you a little bit to lend you money. So in that kind of environment, there's a lack of trust in government, and therefore there's a shift to what kind of an asset none of today's governments control. Which asset is not within the realm of any government? And the answer is there are very few of them. One of them is gold. When you own an ounce of gold, you are not accountable to anything else that's happening in the world. In other words, when Washington borrows money, and you're the lender, and you're getting an income or an interest, there's a risk that something will happen to this. There's a counterparty risk. When you own an ounce of gold, there is no counterparty. You own that ounce. You have no obligations on it. Now, many people on the call will say, well, you know what? I'll just go buy a house, and I'll own it free and clear, and I'll have no counterparty risk, and it's a brick and mortar, it's not paper, etc. Well, if you don't pay your taxes on your property, then you realize you have counterparty risk right there. If you don't pay your mortgage, gold is not like that. Gold is not owned by any government, and no government can make any sort of a rule or a law that impacts its price in a negative way unless there's something seismic that's happening. And if there's something seismic that's happening, like a devaluation or something third world type, then we're already in deep trouble anyway. And that is another case for gold. It is a chaos hedge. And so being now that it's an all-time high is a reflection of distrust in government. It's a reflection of the environment that serves the retirees and savers very poorly. And it's a hedge against very high valuations in the stock market. So I'm very excited about this because basically if you own gold for the last 4 years, like we've said time and time again, you've doubled your money. Gold went from $1,000 to $2,000 an ounce. in 4 years. So think about the fact that this is cash. This is not, you should not compare gold to stocks or anything, or real estate, etc. Compare it to cash. If you owned $100,000 and you converted them to gold 4 years ago, you now have $200,000 in purchasing power. So that is a huge difference between somebody who's a retiree and is holding it is balanced in just a checking account compared to another person who decided to own that same purchasing power in gold.
So, Lior, I know we only scratched the surface on this gold bar today. I know you got plenty of more information and content. I know over at wealthresearchgroup.com. What's the best way for my listeners to go and check out what you're doing? Is it just to head over to the website or social, or let us know how can people follow and continue the conversation with your company?
100%. Go to the website and then either subscribe to the newsletter immediately and, become a subscriber, and then you get all the up-to-date top priority information. Or if you just want to, dabble and see what it's all about, on the top menu, you can click on the special reports tab, and then there's a myriad of PDF download reports that are from many different topics, and you can just pick and choose, and that'll be a secondary way to do it.
Fantastic. Well, Lior, really appreciate you coming on the show today and sharing more about all the great work that you're doing over at wealthresearchgroup.com, and also about a market update on what's going on in gold and in the metals industry. So thank you for that. And to the audience, as always, thank you for tuning in. Hope you got a lot of value out of this. If you did, don't forget to subscribe to the podcast, leave a review in the Apple iTunes store. And if you're watching this on our YouTube channel, Mission Matters Money, definitely give us a subscribe there, but also leave us some comments in the video. Love to know what kind of projects and things that you're working on. And Lior, thanks again for coming on the show.
Thanks for having me.